Good evening and welcome to Metro Focus. I'm Rafael P. Roman. October 29th marks the 5th anniversary of Superstorm Sandy, an event that brought unimaginable devastation and heartache to entire sections of the tri-state area, from the Rockaways to the Long Island and Jersey shores to many points in between. What lessons have we learned in the aftermath of this overwhelming experience? And will we be ready if or when another major hurricane hits us again? Joining us now to help answer these questions is Bill Ulfelder, the Executive Director of the Nature Conservancy in New York. Bill, welcome back to the program.
Thanks, Ralph. It's good to be here to talk about such an important topic.
Right. So listen, what are the lessons that we have learned since Sandy, and what steps have we taken to be prepared?
Well, I think the first is how real the threat is and the importance of abating the threat. So reducing the cause, reducing greenhouse gas emissions. I think the second thing, which is definitely a work in progress, is giving people the information they need to have to make good decisions to manage risk. And the third thing is, which we've really learned in the wake of Sandy here in New York, is the power of nature to protect us and make us more resilient in the face of more oncoming storms.
But you, I think it's safe to say, like most people, believe that it was climate change that caused at least the severity of the destruction of Sandy. The reason I ask is because the spate of recent hurricanes, Irma, Harvey, Maria, I've heard experts say yes, the severity of those storms. And the reason for those storms is global warming. But I've also heard experts say, no, we don't need to go to climate change to understand, to explain the severity of these storms. You say?
Well, in a sense, and it's going to sound a little odd, but both. And the first thing I'll say is there's no question. I mean, with the amount of increased moisture in the atmosphere, the warmer oceans, that's probably the number one contributor. There's no question that we're seeing more severe storms as a result of climate change. But I would say, rather than just sort of pointing fingers and saying, is this real or not, is sort of trying to find the ground that people agree to, which is we want to protect ourselves, we want a prosperous economy, we want to leave the world in a better place for our children and our grandchildren.
Right. Well, so back to Sandy. Would you say that, by and large, we are ready for the next Sandy, or that at least we're safer than we were back in 2012?
Steps have been taken, but we're not where we need to be. So there's certainly things that have been done for the grid, the subway system, but by and large, there is so much at risk and so much at stake in New York that we're not there yet. And I think about, there are 2 million New Yorkers who live within the projected 2 feet of sea level rise that's coming this century. 2 million New Yorkers live in it. It's $100 billion worth of real estate in the high risk zone. So we have so much at stake. And while I think we're seeing some good steps on reducing emissions, we need to see more investments in promoting resilience and defenses, and I would say natural defenses.
Well, let's get specific. Is the Nature Conservancy proposing solutions or specific steps to take?
We definitely are. So one is keep going with these reductions in emissions. So both the governor and mayor have committed to 80% greenhouse gas emission reductions by 2050. That's a big deal. That's sort of leading the nation and the world in a lot of ways. But where I think we're not doing enough is giving people the information about just where they are and how serious the threat is. So whether that's projected sea level rise or things like storm surge, and letting the market dictate some of that risk and the understanding. So for example, people are still paying too little for their flood insurance relative to the magnitude of risk. People don't know that they're in their high risk zones, and they also don't know where wetlands are, for example, which is like that speed bump when you get a storm surge coming. We only have 3% of our original wetlands in New York City. How could we bring back more wetlands, and where might those places be that better protect us? Those are all things we can and should be doing.
Yeah, and so you made reference to this earlier in the conversation. How can we use nature itself to help us, to protect us from superstorm?
Well, one of them is I was just out yesterday with Nature Conservancy team members and volunteers, and we were planting trees in Jamaica Bay in the wildlife refuge. And again, the best thing we can do is have a healthy coastal system of forests, dunes, oyster reefs, mussel beds, wetlands, that when a storm comes, that's going to absorb the initial sort of shock that comes. It doesn't entirely protect us. So one of the things the Nature Conservancy is saying, let's be smart, invest in nature, and where it makes sense, invest in gray and kind of bricks and mortar engineering solutions. So we've done some studies that show some different places around the city where that can be done. But I think right now what we're really hoping to see is people having better information about the level of risk where they are and taking the steps to think about how they plan for a future and getting out of the way. Like buyouts would be one
Well, let's talk
example.
about that. Is it inevitable that people who live on the most vulnerable parts of the shore or have second homes will have to move back?
I think we're going to see a lot more of it. There's no question. It's happening on Long Island. It's happening on Staten Island. Right now, buyouts are entirely voluntary. And it is complicated because while you're at risk, at the same time, these are places where people grew up, their families were raised, you have deep, deep attachments, and it's hard to leave those places and you have a community. But I have no doubt that this century, with the projections of sea level rise, storm surge, flooding we're going to see more and more robust buyout programs all throughout the New York metro area. So what it does is, where people are in harm's way, the government will actually step in and buy your home from you, giving you the chance to move and go somewhere else. And the possibility is that you can actually incentivize whole neighborhoods and say, hey, the more people you group together, the better price you get. And then, you get a whole area moving out. So buyout, I think, is critically important. It's going to be important in New York. It's going to be very important in places like Houston, where they've now projected 140,000 homes are in harm's way for future hurricanes there. It's an important tool in the government's toolbox.
Is it possible for us here in New York, in the tri-state area, to get a real handle on how to protect ourselves from future superstorms and super weather events without the assistance of the federal government, specifically without the assistance of the Trump administration?
Well, it certainly is more challenging when you have a president and an administration that aren't helping make things happen. It's been fun, in a sense, to watch Governor Cuomo, Mayor de Blasio, others. There's this new U.S. Climate Alliance where governors are getting together and saying, we're going to meet our commitment under the Paris Accord, even though the U.S. government won't. So you're seeing a lot of more people stepping up. But at the end of the day, we will rely on federal resources. The investments are big, but they're about avoiding future loss.
All right, Bill. Well, thank you so much. It's always great to have you to talk about such an important issue.
Well, thanks, Rafa. It's good to be here and talking to you.